Okay, so here's the big one, unless I separate it into parts. We're going to jump into a project. If you haven't already made one from the previous tutorial, just start a blank project, nothing special about it. We'll make a new level, a new empty level, pretty bare bones. I have enabled the DMX plugin, the DMX Fixtures plugin, as well as the level design assistant. I've also enabled Off-World Live, but I'm not using it in this particular tutorial. Well, the first thing we're going to do is add a cube, and we'll add it to our origin location, 0, 0, 0. We're going to make it about 30 wide, I think. 30 wide and long. We're going to add some metal material to give it a little bit of texture. You can do a lot more than this. You're going to be designing scenes. This is really more about the concepts than about what I'm actually doing here. Or add a character mesh, something with a skeletal mesh in it, preferably with an animation that loops. Add that in. From quick settings, we'll jump into our DMX settings. I just use 127. Our local settings, I do use universe start of 0. Output, I have it's 2.0.2, but I don't think that it's necessary. We're not using output for anything. And QLC, I have the same thing. So if you do those settings and have Soundswitch open, you should get in some sort of reading. And if you're not, you probably should quit and never try again. Next, we'll add a quick generic par fixture. I'm going to try to upload a sample project with all these sample fixtures in them. To quickly sketch things out, we'll use the level design assistant to duplicate 15 more of these, about 100 apart. And obviously your set design will be different. This is, for example, hopefully the principles and concepts and ideas make sense. Alright, this is based on a light I actually have in my house. I only have 8 of them though. But an easy way to get things symmetrical is to select your first and your last fixtures, and since we're lined up on 0, 0, we can put this one at -800 and the other at +800. Select them from top to bottom and then use the distribute tool and level design assistant to make things even. Pretty easy. Perfect. Gonna make a new project in Soundswitch and we're gonna add 1664p LED Pro. It's a simple 7-channel fixture. It's again the one that I have. I'm gonna add 16 of those. I'll do them in 2 groups of 8 and auto address them. And that should let me test out quickly whether or not things are working. I also need to make a DMX Library and Unreal. I'm including a sample library that has a few fixtures. If you have a library with the fixture already in it, you can copy it and paste it to your new library pretty easily. Once you do that, you'll just add the fixture to your current library and press Ctrl D until you get 16 of them. And then you go into your editor, and you select your fixtures from beginning to end. You go to your auto patcher, you select your correct library, your first fixture, and address incremental. Press play to see those. You might be seeing them already. I have a setting disabled that I'll show you later and tell you why. But if you press play and just play an auto loop, you'll see that your 16 fixtures are going. You also might have more darkness. I'm in unlit mode, which you can switch on at any time. And I probably could have mentioned, whoopsie. I'm going to go through and retype some of these from primary to secondary. It's kind of goofy because I never use an auto script, but this is useful for auto scripting to get a better palette in your light setup. After that, we're going to bring out our, Platinum 15R beam. Gonna make the same 16 of those total by duplicating it 15 times, and then we'll center that by distributing them between two numbers we know. After that, we're gonna pop into our venue DMX library so that we can copy the fixture definition over to our fresh library and add that fixture and duplicate it 15 times, or for a total of 16 fixtures that we have added. Going to go into Soundswitch and search for the Platinum 15R. It's the 14 channel mode, it looks like. Add those in two groups, 8, auto address them. You know, you can do stuff more thoughtful than this. I'm just trying to get it done. And we'll select them and auto patch them, and you can see that they're doing the thing. You see that color wheel magic not quite matching the colors of the other ones? I guess that's, that's variety. Spice of variety of life. And Soundswitch, you can set some positions pretty quickly. Cheap, easy way is to invert like half of it on your pan, and that way everything's pretty symmetrical. You just grab all your lights at once and move them someplace or the other. There are more creative things to do, grab every other one and do some crisscrosses and stuff. But for right now, you guys ain't getting the good stuff. Watch some Soundswitch tutorials if you want to. There are lots of good ones, lots of better ones by smarter people than me. But you should have a good variety of looks or positions. Alright, now we're going to bring out a little light bar. I actually 3D modeled this myself in Blender. It's not one that's not a default from the Unreal thing. And it's also, made by me, so maybe not as good as others. We're going to do the same thing as last time, copy and paste our fixture definition, and then add in, the amount that we added, 8. And Soundswitch, we'll add those as well. The old Cool Band T3, you know the one. They've got 3 addressable light zones, and I don't have them set up to work with 3 addressable light zones as far as logic goes in Unreal, but they are set up as far as meshes go. So maybe I'll update it before I release this, and I'll edit this out. You can't tell me what to do. Punch those bad boys in and address them. Press play, go in, and you can see it's nice. Alright, so now we got things. Fleshity Flashing. I selected my character and grabbed all my fixtures and clicked place around radius at 200 to push them around him in a circle, and then I click set focus to look at an actor. And this works real good because my custom made fixture is facing forward, but the included DMX fixtures that are pointed upward will face all goofy at you. So now we're going to make a custom fixture, because that's what kind of inspired me, was seeing some meshes sort of bob, go to the beat. And I was like, oh, that's like the up down of the pan tilt, shoot. So we'll make a blueprint, a generic blueprint, and we'll add a DMX component to it. Then we'll add a cube component to it, which is just a static mesh component with cube mesh selected. And we'll click on our DMX component, and in the right details panel, we'll pull up on fixture patch received. From that, we'll grab the value per attribute and click break, and we'll drag out from that and click find, and from the list select tilt. Now we're going to drag out our cube or whatever object you want to affect, and we're going to set the relative position. And we're going to take a quick aside, because this is why my fixtures aren't working in editor like they probably are for yours. If you go to DMX and look for all fixtures, receive, patch, and editor, I've unticked that, and I would recommend you do as well if you used a set relative transform, because it can make funky things happen. But if you turn this off, it stops this from becoming a problem. So disable it if you're going to set relative transform. So anyway, we're going to turn that off. We will split our transform and split our rotation, and we'll multiply our found tilt by an amount, like 100, and we'll drag that into one of our X, Y, or Z, and we'll plug in our front on fixture patch received. And now we'll drag one of our custom fixtures into the scene, and we will address it. We'll just put it on the address of a moving headlight to leech off of its DMX tilt. I'll just read whatever tilt is coming through. And so you can see they're not moving to start with. A easy way to test things is with a position chase. And grab two positions and chase them on the ones, and put that across your whole auto loop. They'll pop down here. You're going to have to drag out your final one because it won't be there for whatever reason. But that way your beginning will match your end, and you're going to take that first fixture, and for one position real high, one position real low. Easy peasy, right? Oh no, why is it not working? Oh, it's because I addressed it to the wrong light. So address it to the right light. And believe in myself. Oh, I don't have the auto loop playing. There you go. Scrubbing between. Oh, it's kind of crooked at the top. What's that? So we had chosen 100 as our multiplier. So it was rotating between 0 and 100 degrees. You can swap that to a multiple of 90 or whatever works best for your situation. We'll do our chase on the half beat to speed things up, remembering to add our final attribute Q at the end of the loop. Next, we'll click and drag our value per attribute map and add another node. This one we'll set to listen to our light dimmer value. Now right click your new transform location and split the structure pin. For this one, we'll use a map range clamped, a super helpful node that will remap one range to another. Set our incoming range to 0 to 1 and our outgoing range to 0 to 1500. Honestly, this is doing the same thing as multiplying by 1500, but the node is useful for instance if you want to move back and forth from minus 400 to positive 400, or rotate between negative and positive 90. You get the idea. We'll plug it into our new X location and press play to see the result. Our cube bounces left and right across the stage as expected. We can plug this value into our Z value to add vertical movement instead. Change your max value to 500 to make the range less extreme. You can see one visual glitch you might encounter using this technique where your dimmer value jumps from 100 to 0 or vice versa, and your object just teleports from one spot to another. There should be some way to interpolate to your value over time, like is built into the DMX Fixture plugin, but I couldn't make it work. If you want smooth movements, stick to pan tilt channels as they're less likely to jump around in value. Now I'm going to do a super fast auto script, and you'll see me using forward chases on two groups a lot, especially on quarter beats. This will often follow the kick snare pattern of a beat. We'll add some variation to Soundswitch's everything flashing together default. This is not a tutorial on Soundswitch scripting, and I'd advise you watch other videos for help in that specific area. Once you've finished adding some variety to your light show, it's time to add a camera to our scene. If you're wanting to keep everything symmetrical, center your camera at the origin. Then raise it on its Z-axis to match the height of your character. Rotate your camera to face your character, and finally move your camera out along the Y-axis to a reasonable distance from your character. I'm going to be rotating the camera along the character origin, and to do so easily, you can add a generic actor to your scene and center it at the origin like everything else. Once you have, attach your camera to this actor. You'll rename this actor Pivot to make it easier to identify. In the sequence, click Add and add your Pivot actor. Next, add a transform track to said Pivot actor. Go ahead and add your camera to the sequence as well, as we'll need it for our camera's cut track. Back to our Pivot transform track, we're going to add a keyframe on frame 0 with a keyframe of 0, and add a second keyframe and make it 360, and drag it to your final frame to make the camera rotate around your character 360 degrees from the start and end frames. So how long is our animation supposed to be? You want it to be an even loop of 4, 8, 16, or 32 beats at your desired BPM. For Soundswitch auto loops, we're always going to use 100 BPM. For whatever reason, Soundswitch always plays back auto loops at 100 BPM in edit mode, no matter what it says up here, or if you click link. Will always be 100 BPM in edit mode. You can verify this by checking the different lengths of auto loops and watching the general loop ending times match up to all the expected times from this BPM website. You can use this website to calculate how long your loop will need to be. Our loop comes in at a whopping 38.4 seconds, which we multiply by 60 to get a total of 2,304 frames. We type this into our frame selection box, and it will jump to our desired frame. We need to adjust our min-max frames at the bottom as well to make our viewing area encompass our expected time frame. It helps if you make sure to keep things displayed as frames and not seconds. Drag all the elements of your sequence to the end or even past it if you want. Recording the DMX sequence. Open the Sequence Recorder panel under Windows, Cinematics, Take Recorder. Start a new take if you need to. Click Add Source, DMX Library, and in the DMX Library details, select your library that you've been working with. Click Add All Fixtures. You can scroll through to make sure they're all there. Now with your auto loop rolling, you can click Record and let your auto loop play through at least once, with some overlap to be safe. Press stop to end the recording. There's a little icon beside the new take icon that will let you view your last recording. Click that to load your DMX sequence into your sequencer if you'd like to review it. You'll need to disable Receive DMX or your live Soundswitch data will interfere with your recorded DMX playback. If you want to make your loop match the beginning and end of your Soundswitch loop, you can look for a distinct change, like the color change from blue-green to normal green when the loop rolls over from end to beginning. You can use frame-by-frame analysis to find this moment. Drag your start point here. You'll need to uncheck the lock at the top right corner to enable editing if you want to do this. Once you've found and edited your start point, close your DMX sequence and then reopen your VJ loop sequence. Navigate to your cinematics/take folder to find your most recent DMX recording and drag it to your VJ loop sequence. You can check the start and end frames and make sure they're blue, green, and regular green, just like you're expecting. Now you're pretty much done. I had done my light bar arranging earlier while in play mode, so their positions didn't save, so I'm going to quickly redo that. I also changed my pivot cue points to the linear cue point type for a smooth camera rotation rather than one that slows as it starts and stops. Rendering your loop. I will use Movie Render Queue, which is a free plugin from Epic that will let you render image sequences with all kinds of options if you like. I'm using the default settings now for testing, but you can crank up settings once you have a loop that you really like. Render locally and you're almost done. I use Premiere and import my images as an image sequence. Right click and find Modify, Interpret Footage, and then change your footage to 60 frames per second. Right click your new clip and click New Sequence from Clip, and then render this. Once it's rendered, pop it into Alley and make it a file Resolume likes. Pop that into Resolume and change its transport to BPM. Sync. Kerchow. Oh god. Okay, so I definitely have to do a follow-up video that focuses more on custom DMX because I really barely touched on what you can do with it. I didn't even add color control to a material instance, and it's one of the easiest, coolest things you can do. That being said, I wanted to make things as plug and play as possible, and I try to streamline the process for those who might be new to Unreal. Once you master these basic principles, you should be able to crank out variations on VJ loops with ease by changing elements like your camera, your characters, or their animations, or by changing the scene around them entirely. Look into sub-levels. I'd love some feedback. Took way too long recording and editing this, and hope it's relatively organized. Link me to videos that you make following this if anyone does.